Welcome, dear listener, to another peaceful episode of History to Relax. Tonight, we begin a grand and gentle journey through one of the most turbulent times in human history, the French Revolution. We will travel through time, step by step, experiencing the shifting winds of an era from the quiet, safe comfort of your bed. Close your eyes, let go of the day, and let the echoes of the past soothe you into a deep and peaceful rest. But before we open the heavy wooden doors of our story, please take a brief moment to like this video, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a comment telling us where you are listening from. It costs absolutely nothing, but it helps the channel a lot, allowing us to continue bringing these quiet histories right to you. Now, take a slow, deep breath and let us begin. Our story starts not with the loud cries of a revolution, but with a deep, heavy silence. It is the late 18th century. The year is 1789. We are standing quietly outside the magnificent Palace of Versailles, just a few miles away from the bustling city of Paris. Under the soft light of a pale moon, the towering golden gates of the palace glimmer gently in the cool night air. Versailles is a world of its own, a beautiful gilded cage built by kings to hold the power and the wealth of France. Inside its massive stone walls, thousands of nobles sleep in vast rooms covered in soft silk and painted gold. King Louis XVI, a quiet and somewhat shy man who prefers the delicate work of fixing clocks to the complicated affairs of state, rests in his grand chambers. Not far away is his queen, Marie Antoinette, surrounded by the finest fabrics and the most delicate perfumes the world has ever known. The air inside the palace is thick with the sweet scent of melted beeswax from thousands of candles, now extinguished for the night. The long, mirrored halls, which during the day are filled with the rustling of elegant dresses and polite whispers, are now completely still. Only the quiet, measured footsteps of the royal guards echo softly on the polished marble floors. It is a place of unbelievable comfort, isolated from the worries of the outside world, resting under a heavy blanket of unbothered luxury. But as we drift gently away from the grand palace, moving like a soft night breeze across the manicured gardens and over the high walls, the landscape begins to change. We glide over the vast rolling hills of the French countryside. Here, the night feels different. It is darker, colder, and wrapped in a completely different kind of silence. In small, simple stone cottages scattered across the land, the ordinary people of France are also sleeping. These are the farmers, the bakers, the blacksmiths, and the weavers. Their beds are not made of fine silk, but of rough wool and dry straw. Their homes smell of wood smoke, damp earth, and old wood, a stark and honest contrast to the perfumed halls of Versailles. The entire countryside seems to be holding its breath. The past few years have been very unkind to the fields. Long, freezing winters have hardened the soil, and poor harvests have left the grain bins nearly empty. Even in their sleep, the common people carry the heavy weight of survival. They dream of warm bread, of kind weather, and of a tomorrow that is slightly easier than today. Let us follow the winding path of the River Seine as it flows gently away from the royal estates. The water ripples softly in the moonlight, making a peaceful, continuous sound that has witnessed centuries of kings and queens come and go. The river carries the cool night air directly into the heart of Paris, a city that is a chaotic maze of narrow, loud streets during the day. But now, in the deep and secret hours of the night, even Paris has surrendered to sleep. It is a time of delicate balance. Imagine a perfectly still pendulum, pulled as far back as it can possibly go, suspended for just a fraction of a second before gravity finally pulls it into motion. That is France in the spring of 1789. The air is heavy with anticipation, yet everything remains perfectly, soothingly still. Leaving behind the deep, heavy sleep of the countryside and the silent golden halls of the royal palace, our gentle journey now guides us steadily toward the beating heart of France. We are entering the great winding city of Paris. The night air is cool and crisp against your skin, carrying the faint, earthy scent of the River Seine. As we glide through the narrow cobblestone streets, the city appears completely at rest. Tall, ancient buildings lean toward each other, their dark rooftops creating a jagged silhouette against the starry sky. The daytime noise of wooden cartwheels, shouting merchants, and rushing horses has entirely faded away. It has been replaced by a soothing, heavy stillness. But if we look closely, we can see that not all of Paris is asleep. Here and there, scattered across the wealthy neighborhoods, small, warm glows of light spill out from behind heavy velvet curtains. These gentle beams of amber light fall onto the dark, damp streets like quiet beacons in the night. Let us approach one of these windows and drift inside, leaving the cool night air behind. We have entered a Parisian salon. It is a grand, comfortable living room inside the home of a wealthy, educated citizen. The atmosphere here is completely different from the cold, intimidating stone of the royal palace. A fire crackles softly in a large marble hearth, casting a gentle, dancing orange light across the walls and the ceiling. The air is incredibly warm, smelling faintly of roasted coffee beans, melting beeswax, sweet perfumes, and the comforting scent of old paper. In this cozy room, men and women are gathered together in small, relaxed circles. They sit in plush armchairs, upholstered in soft, dark fabrics. They are not resting their bodies, but their minds are buzzing with a peaceful, focused energy. There is no shouting here, no anger, and no harsh words. They speak in low, passionate whispers, their voices blending together like a soothing, steady hum of bees in a summer garden. This is the dawn of the Age of Enlightenment. It is a beautiful, quiet awakening of the human mind. The people in this room are philosophers, writers, artists, and dreamers. They are sipping from delicate porcelain cups, sharing new, exciting ideas about the world and how it could be. They talk about a gentle, powerful word called liberty. They discuss fairness, equality, and the natural, undeniable rights of every human being, whether they wear fine silk or rough wool. Imagine these ideas as tiny seeds being carefully planted in soft, dark soil. They are nurtured by the warmth of conversation and the clear light of reason. In the corner of the room, near a glowing candelabra, a writer sits quietly at a small wooden desk. The scratch of their feather pen on the crisp paper is a highly rhythmic, relaxing sound. Dip the pen, write a word of hope, and dip the pen again. The steady motion is almost hypnotic, like the gentle ticking of a distant clock. Slowly, quietly, these handwritten thoughts are gathered and taken to the dusty, ink-stained print shops hidden in the narrow alleys of the city. There, the heavy, rhythmic press of the printing machines works steadily through the night. Thump, press, release. Thump, press, release. It is the slow, comforting heartbeat of a brand new era. These freshly printed books and small pamphlets are then carefully bundled together. Tomorrow, they will be carried by horse-drawn carts across the quiet countryside we visited before. The new ideas will travel like a soft evening breeze, moving invisibly across the land, carrying the promise of a brighter dawn to the farmers and bakers who are still dreaming in the dark. The revolution is not yet a storm. Right now, it is simply a whisper in a warm room. It is the comforting, peaceful thought that tomorrow can truly be better than today. It is the gentle belief that the heavy weight of the world can be lifted by the light of understanding. Let that hopeful, peaceful thought wrap around you like a heavy, warm blanket. As the candles in the salon finally begin to burn down to their bases, flickering softly one last time, the philosophers slowly stand to say their quiet goodbyes. The heavy wooden doors close softly behind them. Paris returns entirely to the deep, silent embrace of the night. The glowing ideas will wait patiently in the dark for the morning light, as our journey readies to press onward into the harshness of the coming winter. As the glowing ideas of the salons wait patiently in the dark, the gentle turn of the seasons brings a deep and biting chill over the land. The warm, hopeful breeze of the Parisian autumn slowly surrenders to the heaviest winter France has seen in many years. The sky turns a pale, quiet grey, and thick blankets of snow begin to fall silently across the vast countryside. Each snowflake drifts down with a peaceful grace, covering the frozen fields and the bare branches of the great oak trees in a pure, glittering white. In the rural villages, the world becomes incredibly quiet, muffled by the heavy snowfall. The simple stone cottages, which we visited in our earlier dreams, are now almost buried under the white drifts. Inside these small, fragile homes, the common people huddle closely around their small hearths. The firelight flickers weakly, casting long, soft shadows against the cold stone walls. Families wrap themselves in thick, worn wool, sharing their body heat against the freezing draft that slips under the wooden doors. This winter is not just cold. It carries the heavy burden of the poor harvests from the previous autumn. The soil had grown tired and unyielding, leaving the grain bins and the flour sacks almost entirely empty. The soothing smell of freshly baked bread, a simple comfort that usually warms the heart of every French home, is now just a distant, fading memory. Hunger is a quiet, steady ache, shared by the farmers, the blacksmiths, and the weavers alike. Yet, even in this harsh and freezing winter, there is a beautiful, quiet resilience among the people. They share what little they have with their neighbors, breaking their last hard loaves of bread into smaller pieces, so that no one is left entirely with nothing. They speak in low, hushed tones around the dying embers of their fires, holding on to the deep, human hope that the cold will eventually break. They dream of the spring sun melting the ice, of the earth softening once more, and of golden wheat swaying gently in the warm breeze. The contrast between the frozen, hungry countryside and the warm, golden halls of Versailles has never been more stark. But as the thick ice begins to grip the great rivers of France, freezing the water into a solid, unmoving glass, a different kind of thaw is beginning in the minds of the people. The whispered ideas of fairness and liberty, born in the warm salons of Paris, have traveled through the snow, finding a home in the hearts of those who are waiting for the dawn. The long winter will eventually pass, and soon, a very different kind of spring will awaken the nation, drawing people from all corners of the country to gather together. As the deep, freezing grip of winter finally begins to loosen, a slow and gentle transformation washes over the French countryside. The pale, quiet grey of the sky gradually softens into a warm, inviting blue. The thick blankets of snow that had silenced the villages start to melt, turning into small, crystalline streams of water that trickle peacefully down the hillsides. You can hear the rhythmic, soothing sound of water dripping from the heavy thatched roofs of the stone cottages, a natural metronome marking the arrival of a deeply anticipated spring. With the thawing of the earth comes a profound sense of renewal, not just in the soil, but in the hearts of the people. A remarkable summons has rippled across the land, traveling from the gilded halls of Versailles all the way to the most remote, quiet corners of the nation. For the first time in over 170 years, the king has called for a gathering of the Estates General. It is an invitation for the people of France to come together, to speak, and to be heard. In every small village, bathed in the soft, golden light of the early spring sun, neighbors gather together in their local courtyards and stone churches. The atmosphere is thick with a quiet, respectful solemnity. They are not gathering to protest, but to participate in a grand, hopeful process. They are choosing the men who will represent them, who will carry their voices all the way to the king. The murmurs of conversation are low and steady, a peaceful hum of democratic awakening. In the center of these gatherings, sitting at worn wooden tables, the village scribes carefully dip their quills into dark ink. They are writing what are known as the books of grievances, or the cahiers de doléances. The scratching of the pen against the thick, textured paper is a rhythmic, hypnotic sound. Scratch, dip, write. They are recording the polite but desperate hopes of the common people, a plea for fairer taxes, a request for cheaper salt, a humble wish for enough bread to survive the next winter. These large, leather-bound books become incredibly precious objects. They hold the collective dreams, the quiet suffering, and the gentle optimism of thousands of ordinary men and women. When the writing is finally complete, the ink is left to dry slowly in the fresh spring air. The chosen representatives carefully wrap these books in protective cloth, treating them with the utmost reverence, as if they are carrying the very soul of their village in their hands. Soon, the long journeys begin. From the sun-drenched vineyards of the south to the windswept coasts of the north, solitary carriages and small groups of riders set out onto the muddy, waking roads of France. The wooden wheels of the carts creak softly as they roll over the uneven ground. The rhythmic clopping of horse hooves creates a steady, comforting heartbeat that echoes across the open fields and through the dense, greening forests. As these travelers move closer to the center of the country, the solitary paths begin to merge into larger roads. Men who have never left their home provinces now find themselves riding alongside strangers from entirely different worlds. They share evening fires outside quiet country inns, the crackling flames illuminating tired but hopeful faces. They exchange polite nods and gentle words, realizing with a profound, comforting certainty that they are all carrying the exact same burdens and the exact same hopes. The journey is slow, deliberate, and deeply meditative. There is no rushing, for the roads are still soft with spring rain, and the weight of their mission requires a steady, thoughtful pace. You can feel the gentle rocking of the carriages as they traverse the rolling landscapes. The air smells of damp earth, blooming wildflowers, and the fresh leather of the horses' harnesses. With every passing mile, the heavy silence of the long winter is left further and further behind. Finally, as the month of May approaches, the sprawling, magnificent town of Versailles appears on the horizon. For many of these rural travelers, it is a sight of unimaginable scale and grandeur. The towering golden gates, which we visited in the deep quiet of the night, now shine brilliantly under the warming daytime sun. The town is buzzing with a polite, organized energy, swelling with thousands of new arrivals. The Estates General is made of three distinct groups, arriving like three different rivers flowing into a single massive lake. The first estate, the clergy, arrive in their flowing robes, bringing with them the quiet, solemn dignity of the ancient cathedrals. The second estate, the nobility, arrive in beautiful, ornate carriages, dressed in fine silks and plumed hats, carrying the history of the old gilded cage. But the largest river by far is the third estate. These are the representatives of the common people, the ones who have traveled the furthest and who carry the heaviest books of grievances. They are dressed entirely in simple, austere black cloth. As they walk through the wide, perfectly paved streets of Versailles, they look like a massive, dark and serious shadow moving slowly through a city of bright light and endless color. The day before the great meeting begins, a massive, peaceful procession winds its way through the town. The air is filled with the sweet, heavy scent of burning incense and the incredibly soothing sound of religious choirs singing ancient, harmonious chants. Thousands of people walk slowly together, holding tall, flickering wax candles. The warm, golden light of the candles pushes back the approaching dusk, illuminating the incredibly diverse faces of a nation standing on the very edge of profound change. As the procession concludes and the night fully descends, the travelers return to their temporary lodgings. The grand palace of the king remains a fortress of quiet luxury, but the surrounding inns and boarding houses are filled with the gentle, exhausted breathing of the common representatives. They unpack their simple belongings, carefully placing their precious books of grievances on small bedside tables. The heavy ink on those pages seems to pulse with a quiet, undeniable life of its own. Lying in their unfamiliar beds, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of a royal city settling down for the night, these men feel the profound weight of tomorrow. It is a beautifully peaceful kind of exhaustion. They have journeyed across a frozen country, carrying the fragile hopes of millions, and now, finally, they have arrived. The pendulum of history, which had hung perfectly still in the freezing winter, is now ever so slowly beginning its inevitable swing forward. The gardens of Versailles, stretching out endlessly beneath the starlit sky, seem to stand in stark contrast to the simple realities of the common folk. The geometrically perfect hedges, the still reflective pools of water, and the quiet marble statues all speak of a controlled, unchanging world. Yet, the air moving through these manicured trees carries the undeniable fresh scent of change. The natural world is waking up, and with it, the dormant spirit of the French people is finally beginning to stretch its limbs. Think of the incredible journey it took to reach this single suspended moment in time. From the whispered ideas in the warm Parisian salons to the freezing, hungry silence of the winter cottages, all the way to this massive gathering in the shadow of a golden palace. It is a beautiful, deeply human tapestry of endurance. The men who sleep in the crowded inns tonight are the very threads holding that tapestry together, bound by the heavy ink of their shared grievances. But that grand motion is for tomorrow. Tonight, under the same pale moon that watched over the sleeping countryside, the weary travelers finally close their eyes. Let your own breathing match their slow, restful rhythm. Picture the heavy, dark books resting safely in the quiet rooms, holding the dreams of a nation. Allow the gentle creak of the carriage wheels and the distant, soothing chants of the choirs to fade completely from your mind. Rest deeply for the spring has arrived, and the long, dark winter is finally over. The dawn breaks softly over the manicured town of Versailles, washing the wide cobblestone streets in a pale, silvery light. The air this morning is exceptionally still, carrying the faint, earthy scent of rain from a gentle midnight shower. In the simple, crowded inns and humble boarding houses, the representatives of the Third Estate begin to stir from their sleep. They wake not with a sudden start, but with a slow, heavy realization of the historic weight resting upon their shoulders. The deep, restorative rest of the night slowly gives way to a quiet, focused energy as they prepare for the day ahead. They dress silently in their austere, dark garments, smoothing the creases from their wool coats and adjusting their simple white cravats. Their movements are deliberate and deeply thoughtful, a peaceful meditation before stepping out into the waking city. As they leave their lodgings, they merge into the streets, a quiet, flowing river of men united by a single, steadfast purpose. They walk together toward the grand meeting hall, their footsteps creating a gentle, rhythmic hum against the damp stones. It is a sound of peaceful determination, echoing softly against the tall, ornate facades of the town's buildings. But as they arrive at the heavy, arched wooden doors of the great hall, the rhythm comes to a gentle halt. The doors, which were meant to welcome them, are closed tight and firmly locked. Royal guards stand silently before the entrance, their expressions neutral, denying the representatives access to their own meeting. A wave of hushed confusion ripples through the large crowd. Yet, in this beautiful, suspended moment, there is absolutely no anger, no shouting, and no sudden panic. The air remains calm, filled only with the soft murmurs of men seeking a peaceful solution to an unexpected closed door. Like a quiet, steady stream that has encountered a fallen log, the crowd simply, gracefully finds a new path. They do not force the doors. They turn away, moving together as one dark, slow-moving tide. They walk through the damp, waking streets of Versailles, searching for a space large enough to hold their collective hopes. The sky above remains a soft, overcast grey, acting as a comforting, muted canopy for their historic, unplanned journey. It is a peaceful march, guided by a shared, unspoken promise that they will not be silenced, merely relocated. They find their sanctuary in a most unexpected and unusual place. Just a few streets away, there is an indoor tennis court, known to the locals as the Jeu de Paume. As the heavy, simple wooden doors of the court are pushed open, a cavernous, echoing silence warmly greets them. The walls inside are tall, smooth, and entirely bare, a stark contrast to the gilded, overly decorated halls of the royal palace. High above, large, unadorned windows let in the gentle, diffuse light of the cloudy morning, casting soft, elongated shadows across the vast, empty floor. The men step inside, their footsteps echoing softly and rhythmically against the smooth, hard surface. The sheer, open size of the room makes every hushed whisper and every deep breath sound incredibly significant. They gather close together in the center of the court, standing shoulder to shoulder in the cool, still air. The warmth of their bodies begins to heat the cavernous space, creating a profound, comforting feeling of absolute unity. It is here, within these tall, echoing walls, that a gentle but completely unbreakable promise is about to be made. In the center of the crowd, a single voice rises, calm and incredibly clear. The representative reads a solemn vow, a promise that they will not leave this room, that they will never separate until they have written a new, fair constitution for the people of France. As the words echo into the high ceilings, a wave of pure, quiet agreement washes over the hundreds of men. One by one, they raise their right hands into the cool morning air. The motion is slow, deeply respectful, and entirely unified. A beautiful, silent choreography of shared conviction. Imagine the profound, breathtaking stillness of that singular moment. Hundreds of ordinary men, from the vineyards of the south to the cold coasts of the north, bound perfectly together by a single, peaceful act of defiance. Outside the high walls, a gentle, steady rain begins to fall, pattering softly and rhythmically against the glass windows of the roof. The incredibly soothing sound of the rain seems to bless their promise, washing away the rigid rules of the old world to slowly make room for the new. As the day wears on in a state of tranquil focus, the quiet, meticulous work begins. Small wooden tables are brought into the open space. The rhythmic scratch of feather quills on thick parchment returns once again. But this time, they are no longer writing lists of grievances. They are carefully, thoughtfully writing the foundation of their future. The dark ink flows steadily, laying down the early, hopeful frameworks for liberty, equality, and a deeply fair world. The men speak in hushed, deeply collaborative tones, their low voices blending perfectly with the continuous, hypnotic sound of the rain above. While they write, just a short distance away, the king remains within the quiet luxury of his sprawling palace. He watches the gentle rain fall over his perfectly manicured gardens, completely unaware that the very foundation of his kingdom has just softly shifted beneath his feet. The contrast is deeply mesmerizing. The king in his silent, gilded cage, and the representatives in their bare, echoing court, actively sketching out the dawn of a new era. Both worlds are suspended in the same grey, rainy morning, yet they are moving in entirely different directions. Allow the immense peace of this indoor sanctuary to wash over your own mind. Picture the slow, steady scratch of the pen on the paper, a deeply comforting, repetitive rhythm that grounds you entirely in the present moment. Let the persistent, gentle pitter-patter of the rain on the high glass roof lull you into a state of profound relaxation. There is no rush, no panic, and no chaos in this monumental shift of power. There is only the calm, unyielding strength of people standing peacefully together in the quiet light of a rainy day. The historic day gently and slowly gives way to the late afternoon, the soft grey light gradually fading into a deep, restful twilight. The ink on the great oath is finally beginning to dry, cementing their promise into the pages of history. The men are exhausted, but their hearts are incredibly light. The heavy pendulum of history has finally swung forward, moving with a silent, unstoppable grace. As the shadows lengthen across the empty wooden floor of the tennis court, you too can let go of the day, allowing the soothing echoes of their unity to rock you gently into a deep and completely untroubled sleep. As the ink continues to dry on the solemn promise made within the echoing walls of the tennis court, the winds of change slowly begin to carry that quiet energy away from Versailles. We follow this gentle, invisible current back toward the winding River Seine, drifting once again into the sprawling, dense heart of Paris. It is now the middle of July. The gentle, rainy spring has given way to a thick, warm summer. The air in the city feels different now. It is heavy, not just with the summer heat, but with a profound, vibrating anticipation. The quiet stillness of the sleeping city we visited before has been replaced by a low, continuous hum. It is the sound of thousands of people waking up from a centuries-long slumber. In the narrow cobblestone streets, ordinary citizens are moving together like a slow, deliberate tide. They are not rushing, and they are not shouting. Instead, there is a unified, steady rhythm to their footsteps, a collective march toward the dawn of their own freedom. The beautifully written ideas of the philosophers have finally left the cozy candlelit salons and poured out into the open air. Looming high above the eastern edge of the city is an ancient, massive stone fortress known as the Bastille. For hundreds of years, its 8 giant circular towers have cast long, dark shadows over the neighborhoods below. It is a place of deep, cold silence, a physical reminder of the king's absolute power and the rigid, unyielding rules of the old world. Inside its thick walls lie forgotten dungeons and rusted iron chains, holding the ghosts of a history that the people are finally ready to leave behind. As the morning sun slowly rises, casting a warm golden glow over the rooftops of Paris, the people begin to gather around the base of the great fortress. Picture this, not as a scene of chaotic battle, but as a monumental, deeply symbolic turning point. It is a wave of humanity gently but firmly meeting an immovable stone wall. The citizens stand together in the warm July sun, bakers beside blacksmiths, writers beside weavers. Their presence alone is a quiet, overwhelming force of nature, a vast sea of ordinary people politely demanding that the heavy iron doors of the past be opened. The sheer weight of their unified spirit proves stronger than any physical stone. Hours pass in a tense but mesmerizing suspension of time, until finally the immense rusted chains of the fortress drawbridge begin to groan. The sound is incredibly deep and metallic, echoing for miles across the city. It is the sound of history physically unlocking. Slowly, steadily, the heavy wooden bridge lowers down to the earth. The barrier between the old world and the new world is completely, irreversibly broken. As the citizens step over the threshold, moving into the shadowed courtyards of the Bastille, they do not bring darkness with them. Instead, they bring the brilliant, purifying light of the summer day into places that have not seen the sun in generations. They are not just entering a building, they are dismantling a symbol. Over the coming days and weeks, with careful, deliberate strikes of their hammers, the people will begin to take the Bastille apart, stone by heavy stone. It is a rhythmic, therapeutic deconstruction of an entire era. Think of the profound, deeply calming beauty of this transformation. The giant stones that once formed the cold walls of a silent prison will be gently carried away to the river. There, they will be laid down side by side to build a brand new bridge across the Seine. The very rocks used to separate and contain people will be repurposed to connect them, allowing the citizens of Paris to walk freely over the flowing water, supported by the very history they have just conquered. As the historic day of July 14th finally draws to a close, a massive collective exhale seems to wash over the entire city of Paris. The warm evening air settles down softly over the tired, victorious streets. The sky turns a deep, bruised purple, dotted with the gentle, quiet twinkling of the first stars. In the grand palace of Versailles, miles away from the reality of the city, the king quietly opens his hunting diary and writes a single, completely oblivious word for the day: nothing. But as you lie there, feeling the soft, comforting weight of your own blankets, you know the absolute truth. The world has irrevocably changed. The heavy, dark shadows of the Bastille have completely dissolved into the night air, replaced by a profound, sweeping sense of relief. Allow that same gentle wave of relief to wash over your own body, starting from the top of your head and flowing all the way down to your toes. The old chains are gone. The path forward is clear, and for tonight, there is nothing left to do but drift peacefully into a deep, victorious slumber. As the physical dust from the heavy, falling stones of the Bastille finally settles into the flowing waters of the river Seine, a profound and beautiful calm washes over the heart of France. The chaotic, vibrating energy of the midsummer uprising gently gives way to the slow, steady heat of August. The month brings with it a warm, golden sunlight that seems to linger just a little bit longer in the evening sky, as if the sun itself is reluctant to close its eyes on this newly awakened world. The heavy, dark shadows that once dominated the narrow streets of Paris have been entirely swept away, replaced by an expansive, breathable atmosphere of pure, collective relief. The physical chains of the old world have been broken, but a new foundation must now be built, not with heavy stones, but with careful, deliberate words. We drift away from the open streets and move quietly back indoors, entering the vast, airy halls where the representatives of the people have gathered once again. The National Assembly is in session. The cavernous room is bathed in the soft, diffused light of the late summer sun, streaming through the tall glass windows and illuminating the hundreds of men who sit in quiet, deeply focused contemplation. The mood in this grand hall is no longer one of desperate survival or tense defiance. It is a mood of profound, almost sacred responsibility. The air is incredibly still, filled only with the incredibly soothing, rhythmic sounds of deep thought. You can hear the gentle shifting of soft woolen coats, the quiet clearing of a throat, and the continuous, hypnotic scratching of fine feather quills moving across thick, textured parchment. Scratch, pause, dip the pen. Scratch, pause, dip the pen. It is the incredibly peaceful sound of history being carefully and permanently rewritten. Just a few nights prior, in a beautiful, sweeping moment of unified surrender, the nobility and the clergy had voluntarily given up their ancient, inherited privileges. During what became known as the Night of August the 4th, centuries of complex feudal laws, strict social classes, and heavy rural taxes simply melted away into the warm summer night. It was as if a massive, suffocating blanket had been gently lifted from the shoulders of the entire countryside. Now, the slate is entirely blank, clean, and ready to be filled with the brilliant light of reason. The men at the wooden desks are drafting a document that will soon be known as the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. They are not writing complicated laws or confusing royal decrees. They are writing down the simple, undeniable truths of human existence. They speak in low, harmonious voices, debating the exact meaning of words that hold infinite, quiet power. The word liberty echoes softly against the high ceilings. The word equality follows, rolling through the room like a gentle evening tide. Imagine the immense, quiet comfort of these words being set into ink for the very first time. The document states, simply and beautifully, that all men are born free and remain free and equal in their rights. It is a sentence that instantly balances the great scales of the universe. It means that the wealthy nobleman sleeping in his gilded cage at Versailles and the tired baker resting on his rough straw mattress in the village are now entirely equal under the vast, starry sky of France. The heavy, imaginary lines that divided them have been washed away like footprints in the soft sand. The writers continue their meticulous work, carefully outlining the natural rights of every human being. They write about the absolute right to safety, the right to own the fruits of one's own labor, and the freedom to speak one's mind without fear of the dark shadows. Each carefully chosen word is a small, glowing ember of hope, slowly being woven together into a magnificent, protective tapestry for the nation. The rich smell of the dark iron galling, mixing with the faint, sweet scent of warm parchment, creates a deeply grounding sensory experience in the quiet hall. Let your own mind settle into the rhythm of this peaceful creation. Picture the dark ink sinking deeply into the soft fibers of the paper, drying slowly in the warm air, becoming permanent, undeniable truth. With every stroke of the quill, a new layer of anxiety is lifted from the collective soul of the people. The unpredictable, frightening whims of an absolute monarch are being gracefully replaced by the steady, reliable comfort of written rights. It is the deeply soothing transition from chaos into a fair, logical harmony. As the final words of the declaration are agreed upon, a beautiful collective sigh of accomplishment moves through the assembly. The document is passed gently from hand to hand. Men with tired eyes but incredibly full hearts look down at the pages, reading the words that will soon travel to every corner of the globe. The 17 short, powerful articles of the Declaration are like the first, brilliant rays of the morning sun finally cresting over a dark horizon. This metaphorical sunrise does not happen all at once. It begins as a soft, glowing light in the heart of Paris, slowly expanding outward across the countryside we know so well. The light travels across the rolling hills, touching the stone cottages, warming the freezing soil, and illuminating the green canopies of the ancient forests. Although the humble farmers and distant weavers cannot yet read the beautifully written pages themselves, they can instinctively feel the shift in the atmosphere. They can feel the morning dew evaporating under the warmth of a profound new dignity. The knowledge that you are seen, that you matter, and that you are protected by the very laws of your nation is perhaps the most relaxing, comforting thought a human being can possess. For centuries, the common people of France slept with one eye open, burdened by the heavy weight of an unfair world. But on this late August evening, as the copies of the Declaration begin to roll off the heavy wooden printing presses, a new kind of sleep becomes possible. The rhythmic thump and press of the printers in the hidden alleys return once again, beating like a strong, calm, and incredibly steady heart. Thump, press, release. Thump, press, release. Each printed page is a promise of safety. As the night fully descends over the great city, pulling a velvet blanket of darkness over the warm streets, the newly minted citizens of France can close their eyes with a completely unprecedented sense of peace. Allow that same profound peace to wrap its gentle arms around you. You are safe in this quiet moment, just as the words on the parchment promised safety to a restless nation so many years ago. Let the slow, rhythmic scratching of the quill fade entirely from your memory, leaving behind only the deep, resonant comfort of equality and freedom. The dawn has finally arrived. The heavy chains have dissolved into nothingness, and you can simply rest. As the deep, resonant comfort of equality settles over the minds of the people, the great wheel of the year continues its slow, inevitable turn. The warm, golden days of late summer gradually surrender to the crisp, cooling breath of October. The leaves on the ancient trees lining the river Seine begin to shift, turning from a vibrant green to deep, rich shades of amber, rust, and burnt orange. They detach from their branches and drift lazily down to the cobblestone streets, creating a soft, colorful carpet over the winding roads of Paris. But while the beautiful, newly printed words of the Declaration have nourished the souls of the citizens, the physical reality of the season remains. The soil is still recovering, the flour bins are still alarmingly low, and the simple, grounding comfort of warm bread is still missing from the hearths of the common folk. We find ourselves in the early, mist-covered morning of October the 5th. The sky above Paris is a pale, heavy slate grey. In the bustling, open-air markets of the city, the women of Paris are gathering. These are the mothers, the market vendors, the weavers, and the wives. They are strong, resilient women who carry the heavy burdens of their households on their capable shoulders. The atmosphere among them is not one of chaotic rage, but of a deep, rumbling, and unified determination. They stand together in the cool morning mist, their voices blending into a low, steady murmur that hums with an unbreakable, collective purpose. From the center of the crowd, a gentle, rhythmic sound begins to echo through the marketplace. It is the slow, steady beating of a single drum. Thump, thump, thump. It is not the fast, frantic beat of a war drum, but rather a slow, deeply grounding sound, mimicking the steady heartbeat of the city itself. As the drum continues its hypnotic rhythm, the heavy grey clouds above finally open up, and a soft, continuous autumn rain begins to fall. The raindrops patter gently against the canvas awnings of the market stalls, creating a beautifully soothing white noise symphony. It washes over the cobblestones, turning the streets slick and shiny like polished dark glass. Instead of dampening their spirits, the rain seems to baptize their mission, washing away the hesitation and binding the women closer together. They pull their heavy wool shawls tight around their shoulders, the fabric growing damp and smelling deeply of wet earth and raw fleece. Moving in perfect time with the slow drumbeat, the massive river of women begins to walk. They are leaving the crowded, leaning houses of Paris behind, setting their sights on the distant, gilded gates of Versailles. It is a long journey of 12 miles, but there is absolutely no rush. They fall into a steady, walking trance. The sound of thousands of leather shoes and wooden clogs rhythmically hitting the muddy road creates a continuous, mesmerizing squelch. Step and breathe. Step and breathe. They share their warmth, pressing close together as the rain continues its steady, rhythmic fall from the vast, open sky. As they march through the rolling French countryside, the world around them is hushed and muffled by the falling water. The bare, dark branches of the wintering trees stand like quiet sentinels watching them pass. Small streams of rainwater run alongside the dirt roads, carrying the fallen autumn leaves away toward the river. The physical exertion of the walk, the heavy, repetitive motion of their legs, and the constant drumming patter of the rain on their shoulders puts the entire procession into a deeply meditative state. They are moving as one single, powerful, and utterly peaceful organism, drawing the king's attention back to the reality of his people. The afternoon slowly melts into a deep, watery twilight. The light fades from the sky, leaving the world entirely painted in soft, cool shades of charcoal and indigo. Through the mist and the darkness, the massive palace of Versailles finally appears on the horizon. It is a breathtaking contrast. The palace is completely dry, glowing with the warm amber light of thousands of perfectly arranged beeswax candles. It stands isolated and bright, while the sea of weary, soaked women stands entirely in the dark, smelling of rain and the honest sweat of a 12-mile march. They arrive at the magnificent golden gates, the very same gates we observed in our first quiet night together. But tonight, the silence of the palace is met by the overwhelming presence of the people. The women do not break the gates, they simply stand before them, a vast, undeniable ocean of humanity waiting patiently in the gentle downpour. Their very presence is a quiet demand that can no longer be ignored. The beautifully written words of the declaration are now standing at the king's doorstep, embodied by the tired, hungry mothers of France. Inside the warm, dry halls of the palace, the king looks out from his grand windows. He sees the endless sea of flickering lanterns the women have brought, reflecting beautifully in the puddles of the courtyard. He listens to the incredibly soothing, rhythmic sound of the rain, mixed with the low, steady hum of thousands of voices. In this quiet, suspended moment of realization, the king understands that the gilded cage can protect him no longer. To bring peace to his people, he must step out into the rain with them. He agrees to leave Versailles, to pack his carriages, and to return with them to the heart of Paris. A profound, sweeping wave of relief washes over the exhausted crowd. The incredibly heavy tension that had hung in the cool autumn air dissolves completely, washing away into the earth with the falling rain. The women have accomplished their monumental task without a storm of violence, but with the steady, unyielding power of a rhythmic tide. For tonight, they set up their simple camps in the grand courtyards and the sheltered archways of the royal town. Allow the soothing sound of that endless, gentle rain to wash over your own mind. Picture the water rolling off the heavy wool cloaks, taking with it all the exhaustion, the worry, and the strain of the long march. The deeply rhythmic patter against the cobblestones is nature's own lullaby, a comforting, continuous sound that tells you the hard work is finally over. Let your breathing slow down, matching the steady, peaceful beat of the distant drum that guided them here. The people are safe, the king is returning, and you can drift away into a deep, beautifully restful sleep, completely surrounded by the calming embrace of the autumn rain. When the dawn finally breaks and the heavy autumn rain gently comes to a stop, the long, slow journey from Versailles reaches its quiet conclusion. The massive wooden wheels of the royal carriages roll softly over the wet cobblestones, bringing the king and his family directly into the very center of Paris. They arrive at the Tuileries Palace, an ancient, sprawling residence, resting peacefully along the right bank of the River Seine. For many years, this grand building had been left mostly empty, silently watching the seasons change, while the royal court lived far away in their isolated, gilded cage. Now its long, quiet corridors are suddenly awakened by the arrival of the new era. The air inside the Tuileries feels remarkably different from the perfumed halls we visited before. It is cooler, carrying a faint, comforting scent of old wood, beeswax, and the damp, fresh earth from the gardens outside. As the royal family settles into their new rooms, a profound, uneasy quiet blankets the palace. They are no longer separated from the people by miles of rolling countryside and towering iron gates. They are now directly in the beating heart of the city, surrounded on all sides by the vibrant, waking energy of the very citizens who marched through the rain to bring them here. Just outside the tall glass windows of the palace lies a magnificent sanctuary, the Tuileries Gardens. Imagine a vast, perfectly symmetrical landscape of carefully planted trees, smooth stone statues, and wide, flat pathways covered in fine, white gravel. In the soft, fading light of the late autumn, the gardens are an oasis of absolute tranquility amid the busy city. The leaves have nearly all fallen now, leaving the dark, elegant branches of the chestnut and elm trees to reach upward into the pale, misty sky. From the safety of their warm rooms, the royal family spends hours looking out through the thick window panes, quietly observing the shifting dynamics of their world. Through the iron fences that enclose the garden, they can see the ordinary people of Paris walking by. Women carrying baskets of fresh bread, men returning from the markets, and children playing softly in the damp afternoon air. The king watches them in a state of silent, mesmerizing observation. The people look back toward the palace, knowing their monarch is finally there, sharing the exact same air, the exact same weather, and the exact same city. This shared existence creates a deeply fascinating, temporary equilibrium. The intense, vibrating tension of the summer and the exhausting march of the autumn have completely settled into a peaceful, suspended stillness. Inside his private chambers, the king returns to his favorite, deeply relaxing hobby. He sits at a small wooden desk, surrounded by tiny, delicate gears, polished brass springs, and fine tools. He's fixing clocks. The rhythmic, incredibly steady ticking of the timepieces fills the room with a soothing, predictable heartbeat. Tick, tick, tick. While the massive gears of history are turning uncontrollably outside his windows, he finds profound comfort in the tiny, perfect mechanical order resting right in the palm of his hand. As you listen to the steady, comforting rhythm of this story, allow your own mind to focus on that slow, precise ticking. Let it synchronize with your own breathing. In breath, out breath. Just like the careful placement of a tiny golden gear, let every worry of your day find its proper, quiet resting place. There is an immense grounding comfort in knowing that despite the grand sweeping changes of the world, small moments of absolute peace can always be found. As the weeks gently roll forward, the crisp chill of late autumn slowly deepens into the quiet freeze of winter. The sky over Paris turns a soft, opaque white. Soon, delicate snowflakes begin to fall over the Tuileries gardens, landing silently on the smooth shoulders of the marble statues and lightly coating the bare branches of the trees. The layer of white snow acts like a heavy, natural blanket, muffling the sounds of the horse-drawn carriages and the busy market streets outside the gates. The city wraps itself in wool and wood smoke, settling into a long, reflective hibernation. The quiet inside the palace deepens alongside the winter chill. The grand halls are heated by massive stone fireplaces, where thick oak logs crackle and pop gently in the glowing orange embers. The soothing smell of the wood smoke mixes completely with the cold, pure air seeping in through the window frames. In the evenings, the palace is lit not by the overwhelming, brilliant glare of Versailles, but by a softer, humbler glow of oil lamps and scattered candles. Long, slow shadows dance lazily across the painted ceilings, creating a hypnotic, swaying visual rhythm. During this period of uneasy but deeply restful quiet, the new National Assembly is meeting just a short distance away, working continuously to build the new laws of the land. But their debates are muffled by the thick palace walls and the falling snow. To the royal family, and to you, resting quietly in your bed, those distant changes are simply echoes, soft ripples on the surface of a deep, still pond. The revolution has paused to catch its breath, allowing the tired nation a much-needed moment of collective slumber. Imagine standing at one of the tall windows of the Tuileries Palace, looking out at the completely white, untouched snow covering the beautiful sleeping gardens. The world looks entirely clean, peaceful, and perfectly still. The only movement is the gentle, downward drift of the snowflakes, falling endlessly from the pale sky. There is nowhere else to be, and nothing else to do. The people are safe in their homes, the king is safe in his city, and the heavy burden of history has been temporarily laid down in the soft winter snow. As the night fully takes hold of Paris, the last glowing embers in the fireplaces begin to fade into a deep, soft grey ash. The rhythmic ticking of the repaired clocks continues its gentle, protective watch over the silent rooms. The entire city, united now with its monarch in the heart of the capital, completely surrenders to the dark, comforting embrace of sleep. Allow that same heavy, beautiful winter silence to completely fill your mind. Let the quiet snow cover your thoughts, one gentle flake at a time, until everything is perfectly still, perfectly calm, and profoundly at peace. The deep, white slumber of the winter eventually softens and melts away, giving life to a new spring, and then, inevitably, to the thick, warm air of the summer of 1791. The Tuileries Palace, which had served as a quiet, reflective sanctuary during the cold months, has slowly begun to feel like a very different kind of gilded cage. The king and his family have spent countless hours watching the vibrant, unpredictable energy of Paris from behind their heavy glass windows. But tonight, as the month of June brings a heavy, warm darkness over the city, a profound and secretive stillness descends upon the royal chambers. It is midnight. The massive stone palace is completely silent, wrapped in the comforting, obscuring cloak of the dark. Inside the private rooms, there are no grand declarations, no bright, flickering candelabras, and absolutely no signs of royal luxury. Instead, there is only the quiet, deliberate rustling of simple, dark fabrics. The king, a man used to the finest silks and gold embroidery the world has ever known, is dressing himself in the plain, unadorned clothes of a humble valet. The queen is wrapping herself in the simple, modest dress of a children's governess. Their movements are incredibly slow, cautious, and deeply focused. Every footstep on the polished wooden floorboards is carefully placed to avoid even the slightest creak. The air in the room is thick with a heavy, magnetic anticipation, a quiet tension that pulls at the edges of the shadows. Yet, there is also a profound sense of purpose in their silence. They are preparing to leave the watchful eyes of the city behind, to slip through the cracks of history, and to disappear entirely into the vast, open countryside. One by one, like gentle phantoms moving through the night, the disguised family members slip out of the palace doors. They step out into the cool, refreshing night air of Paris. The city is fast asleep, its narrow, winding streets entirely empty and bathed in the pale, milky light of a crescent moon. The cobblestones are slightly damp from the evening humidity, muting the sound of their soft leather shoes. Step, pause, breathe. Step, pause, breathe. They walk with their heads down, completely blending into the comforting anonymity of the dark. Just a short distance away, waiting patiently in the shadows of a quiet square, is their vessel for the night. It is a massive, heavy carriage known as a berline, painted in a deep, dark green that makes it almost invisible against the night sky. The horses, strong and calm, stand perfectly still, occasionally letting out a low, soft snort that plumes into the cool air. The smell of the carriage is rich and incredibly grounding, a mixture of oiled leather, warm horsehair, and the varnished wood of the heavy doors. As the heavy wooden door of the carriage is softly pulled open, the family climbs inside, retreating into the velvet darkness of the interior. The door clicks shut with a solid, satisfying sound, instantly sealing them off from the outside world. In this small, enclosed space, the air is warm and smells faintly of the lavender water used to scent their simple clothes. The royal children, exhausted by the late hour and the quiet excitement, almost immediately rest their heavy heads against the plush cushions and close their eyes. With a gentle, nearly silent command to the horses, the carriage finally begins to move. The massive wooden wheels turn slowly at first, groaning softly as they roll over the Parisian cobblestones. Soon, the heavy stones of the city streets give way to the packed dirt of the open country roads. The sound of the wheels completely changes, transforming from a hard clatter into a deep, rhythmic, and incredibly soothing rumble. Rumble, sway, glide. Rumble, sway, glide. The heavy carriage acts like a giant, protective cradle, gently rocking the family back and forth as it navigates the uneven roads. The tension that had gripped their chests in the palace begins to slowly, gradually unravel. They are no longer a king and a queen trapped in the center of a revolution. They are simply a quiet family, sitting close together in the dark, traveling peacefully under a vast canopy of stars. The king looks out the small glass window, watching the dark silhouettes of the ancient forests pass by like gentle sleeping giants. Imagine the profound, hypnotic peace of that midnight journey. The rhythmic, steady trotting of the horses acts as a perfect, continuous metronome. Clip, clop, clip, clop. It is a sound that has echoed through centuries of history, a deeply familiar, comforting rhythm that lulls the mind into a state of absolute relaxation. A cool night breeze slips through the cracks of the carriage windows, carrying the sweet, earthy fragrance of sleeping summer fields, wild clover, and damp soil. As the hours roll by, the miles stretching endlessly behind them, the historical weight of their secret escape fades into the background. The future is uncertain, and the dawn will eventually bring new challenges. But in this beautiful, suspended moment, none of that matters. There is only the rocking of the carriage, the soft, rhythmic breathing of the sleeping children, and the comforting cover of the night sky. The universe feels perfectly balanced on the edge of this quiet country road. Allow yourself to climb into that dark, velvet interior. Feel the gentle, continuous rocking motion in your own body, a soothing sway that massages away the rigid tension in your muscles. Let the rhythmic rumble of the wooden wheels become the only sound in your mind, drowning out the loud, complicated thoughts of your day. You are perfectly safe here, hidden in the shadows, moving smoothly and steadily through the peaceful dark. As the carriage continues its long, slow journey toward the distant town of Versailles, the stars above slowly begin to shift across the sky. The night is deep, endless, and incredibly calm. Let the gentle motion carry you entirely away from the waking world. Release your grip on the day, sink deeply into the soft cushions of the dark, and allow the incredibly peaceful rhythm of the midnight carriage to rock you gently into a long, dreamless sleep. The long, quiet night of the carriage journey eventually meets the inevitable pale light of dawn. As the sun rises over the French countryside, the dream of a secret escape slowly dissolves into the morning mist. The heavy green carriage, which had rocked the royal family in a temporary, comforting illusion of freedom, is gently turned around near the small town of Varennes. The journey back to Paris is incredibly slow, marked by a profound and heavy silence. The roads that once felt like a pathway to the stars now serve as a long, solemn procession back to reality. When the carriage finally rolls back onto the cobblestone streets of the capital, the atmosphere in the city is entirely different from the night they left. The citizens of Paris line the streets by the thousands, standing shoulder to shoulder in the warm summer air. But there is no shouting. There is no chaotic anger. Instead, the people simply watch in absolute, overwhelming silence. It is the quiet, undeniable realization that the ancient magic of the monarchy has completely and permanently evaporated. The king is no longer a distant, untouchable figure resting in a gilded cage. He is simply a man in a carriage, surrounded by the people who now hold the true power. As the wheel of the year continues to turn, bringing the cool, crisp winds of another autumn, the final pages of the old world are steadily and methodically turned. The Tuileries Palace, once a sanctuary of ticking clocks and quiet gardens, slowly empties of its royal aura. The heavy velvet curtains, the polished golden gears, and the scent of melted beeswax gently fade into the background of history. The crown, an incredibly heavy burden of gold and jewels that had weighed down the heads of kings for centuries, is finally softly set aside. In the cool, golden light of September, a profound transformation takes place. The National Convention gathers together, bringing the voices of the farmers, the bakers, and the writers into a single, unified chorus. With careful, deliberate strokes of their feather quills, they write a brand new reality into existence. They declare the birth of the French Republic. It is a monumental exhale for the entire nation. They are no longer subjects to a crown. They are entirely free citizens, holding the reins of their own destiny in their quiet, capable hands. To mark this beautiful, sweeping change, they do something incredibly profound. They restart time itself. The old calendars are gently packed away, and the first day of the Republic becomes day one of year one. Imagine the incredible, soothing peace of a completely blank slate. Every mistake of the past, every heavy chain of the ancient laws, is simply washed away by the flow of the river. The months are renamed to honor the natural, comforting rhythms of the earth. There is a month for the falling mist, a month for the winter frost, and a month for the blooming seeds. The people are finally aligning their lives not with the decrees of a monarch, but with the steady, peaceful turning of the seasons. Yet, to fully step into this new dawn, the absolute final ties to the past must be severed. The winter of year one brings a deep, solemn chill to the city of Paris. The atmosphere is incredibly heavy, filled with a mechanical, quiet coldness. In a large, open public square, the final symbol of the old world meets its end. There is no chaos, only a quiet, steady drumbeat echoing against the stone buildings. Thump, thump. Then there is the heavy, inevitable thud of the blade, a single sharp sound that echoes into the winter air and marks the closing of a massive, ancient door. The king is gone, his quiet, clock-making hands resting finally in the earth. The great pendulum of history has completed its long, inevitable swing, changing the landscape of the world forever. But as the echo of that heavy thud slowly fades away, it is replaced by the incredibly soothing sound of a gentle winter snowfall. Pure, white flakes begin to drift down from the pale grey sky, covering the open squares, the quiet rooftops, and the empty, echoing halls of the palaces. The snow acts as a deep, healing blanket, purifying the city and hushing the monumental weight of the day. Far away from the center of Paris, in the small stone cottages across the countryside, the common people are tending to their evening fires. The flames crackle warmly in the hearths, casting a gentle orange glow over their tired but peaceful faces. They listen to the wind rustling through the bare branches of the oak trees, completely secure in the knowledge that they are now the sovereigns of their own land. The vast rolling fields resting under the snow belong to them. The future, a wide unwritten book, belongs entirely to them. As you lie quietly in your own space, listening to the steady rhythm of this newly born republic, allow yourself to feel that same profound sense of a fresh start. Let go of your own past, of the heavy burdens you have carried through your day, and embrace the beautiful comfort of year one. You are the author of your own calm, the sovereign of your own rest. Let the gentle, falling snow of history cover your thoughts, leaving only a pure, white quiet. Breathe deeply into this new era. Relax your shoulders, and let the peaceful, steady heartbeat of the new world guide you into a deep, untroubled sleep. As the deep, quiet snows of year one slowly melt into the damp earth, the reality of the new republic begins to truly take root. The transition is not simply a matter of changing the laws written on thick parchment. It is a profound shift in the very gravity of daily life. The grand, gilded palaces that once dictated the rhythm of the nation now stand entirely empty, their long, mirrored halls reflecting only the shifting sunlight and the silent passage of time. The immense power of the country has descended from the untouchable heavens and settled firmly into the calloused, capable hands of the common people. But with this unprecedented power comes the heavy, turbulent weight of navigating a completely uncharted future. The years that follow the birth of the Republic are like a great, wild river rushing over a jagged and unfamiliar landscape. The waters of history are highly turbulent, churning with the intense, restless energy of a nation trying desperately to define its newly won freedom. Yet, if we look away from the loud, echoing political halls of Paris and drift quietly back into the vast, rolling countryside, we begin to observe a completely different kind of rhythm. Here, the everyday French citizens are doing what they have always done for generations. They are surviving. Their enduring resilience is a quiet, deeply grounding force, acting as a massive, heavy anchor in the very center of a swirling political storm. Imagine a solitary farmer standing at the edge of his expansive field in the pale, soft light of the early morning. The complex laws and decrees in the capital may change by the hour, shifting like the winds, but the rich, dark soil beneath his heavy wooden clogs remains constant, reliable, and deeply familiar. He guides his heavy iron plow through the earth in slow, deliberate, and perfectly straight lines. The rhythmic, incredibly soothing sound of his oxen's deep breath, combined with the soft, tearing sound of the turning soil, creates a peaceful, continuous melody. He's adapting to a world turned entirely upside down, not by fighting the chaotic current, but by planting his seeds deeply and steadily into the firm ground. In the small, winding cobblestone streets of the provincial towns, the weavers, the blacksmiths, and the bakers continue their rhythmic, essential work. The metal coins they used to buy their raw flour may now bear new symbols of liberty, and the dates on the new Republican calendar may follow a completely brand new rhythm, but the comforting, yeasty smell of baking bread remains exactly the same. The heavy wooden looms continue to clack back and forth, weaving thick, warm wool, just as they did under the ancient reign of kings. Clack, slide, pull. Clack, slide, pull. It is the hypnotic, deeply reassuring heartbeat of human endurance, a sound that refuses to be silenced by the turning of the political tides. As the spring rains arrive, washing the remnants of the cold winter away, the people adapt to their new reality with a quiet, dignified grace. The rain falls gently over the slate roofs of the cottages, drumming a steady, comforting lullaby against the wooden shutters. Inside, families gather around their small hearths, reading the newly printed news from the capital by the flickering, amber light of a single tallow candle. The words are sometimes frightening, telling tales of distant battles and turbulent shifts in leadership. But the warmth of the fire and the shared presence of loved ones provide an impenetrable shield of domestic peace. They listen to the gentle patter of the rain, finding solace in the undeniable truth that storms, no matter how fierce, always eventually pass. When the hot golden days of summer return, the wheat fields turn into vast oceans of swaying amber grain. The harvest becomes a profound symbol of their collective strength and their new shared destiny. Entire villages step out into the sunlit fields together, their scythes swinging in a beautiful, slow, and unified choreography. Swish, step. Swish, step. The exhausting physical labor focuses the mind entirely on the present moment, sweeping away the complicated anxieties of the revolution. They are not harvesting for a distant, wealthy lord who rests in a gilded cage. They are harvesting for themselves, for their neighbors, and for the survival of their new republic. This is the true beating heart of France during these turbulent years. It is not found in the chaotic squares or the loud echoing debates, but in the quiet, unbreakable routines of ordinary people. They find a profound protective comfort in the absolute predictability of their daily chores. When the world outside feels entirely unpredictable, there is an immense grounding peace to be found in the simple act of sweeping a stone floor, drawing cold, clear water from a deep well, or sharing a quiet, modest meal at a worn wooden table. These simple acts become quiet acts of defiance against the chaos of the era. Allow yourself to draw strength from this incredible historic resilience. Picture the steady, flour-dusted hands of the baker shaping the soft dough, and the calm, deeply focused eyes of the farmer watching the shifting clouds in the sky. Let the loud, chaotic noise of the changing world around you fade entirely into the background, leaving behind only the soft, rhythmic sounds of simple, enduring life. You, too, possess the incredible power to find your footing when your own world feels turbulent and upside down. You have a heavy, unbreakable anchor of peace deep within yourself, strong enough to withstand any shifting wind or unexpected tide. As the summer gently fades into another crisp, colorful autumn, and the cycle of the year prepares to close once again, the citizens of the Republic return to their humble homes. The sun sets slowly over the rolling fields, casting long, peaceful, purple shadows across the freshly turned earth. The people wash the day's honest dust from their hands, pull their heavy, woven woolen blankets tightly over their shoulders, and completely surrender to the approaching night. The grand pendulum of history will continue its wide, chaotic swing, carrying the nation through more turbulence before it finally finds its center. But inside these small, quiet stone walls, there is only the slow, steady breathing of a people who know with absolute certainty that they can weather any storm. They have survived the long winters. They have broken the heavy chains, and they are learning to walk steadily on this newly formed earth. Let your own breath naturally match their slow, deeply restful rhythm. Inhale peace, exhale worry. Inhale strength, exhale the noise of the day. The seasons will always keep turning. The earth will always provide a place to rest, and you can drift away now into a deep, completely untroubled, and beautifully restorative slumber. As the resilient citizens of the countryside find their peace in the steady rhythm of the soil, the great turbulent river of the Revolution reaches its most narrow and dangerous rapids. The year moves deep into the sweltering heat of the summer of 1794. In the heart of Paris, the atmosphere has grown incredibly thick, heavy, and completely still, much like the unbearable, suffocating quiet that always precedes a massive thunderstorm. The pendulum of history, which had swung so wildly away from the absolute control of the king, has now swung to the absolute opposite extreme. It is a time known simply as the Terror. During these incredibly tense months, a deep and pervasive shadow falls over the cobblestone streets of the cities. The beautifully written words of liberty and equality, which had once felt like a warm sunrise, have temporarily been eclipsed by a cold, mechanical fear. The people of Paris walk with their heads bowed down, speaking only in the softest of whispers, afraid that a single misunderstood word might be carried away by the shifting winds. The wooden wheels of carts clatter endlessly over the stones, carrying a heavy, sorrowful weight that the new republic had never intended to bear. The nation is holding its breath, waiting desperately for the storm to finally break. But history, much like nature itself, cannot sustain a storm forever. The dark clouds eventually must part. In the very heat of the midsummer, during the newly named month of Thermidor, the breaking point finally arrives. It does not come with a massive, deafening explosion, but rather with a sudden, overwhelming exhaustion. The men who had pushed the pendulum so high into the air, driving the chaotic momentum of the era, suddenly lose their grip. In a matter of mere days, the intensely rigid structure of fear completely collapses under its own unbearable weight. When the news slowly begins to spread from the political halls out into the winding streets of the city, the reaction is not one of wild, chaotic celebration. Instead, it is something much deeper and infinitely more powerful. It is a massive, collective exhale. Imagine millions of people who had been holding their shoulders tightly up to their ears for an entire year, suddenly, all at once, letting them drop. The heavy, suffocating band of tension wrapping around the chest of the nation simply snaps, dissolving completely into the warm summer air. Almost immediately, the physical landscape of the city begins to profoundly change. The heavy iron keys are turned in the locks of the crowded, damp prisons. The massive wooden doors, which had stood as terrifying symbols of the extreme, groan open to reveal the bright golden light of the late July sun. Thousands of people step out from the cold shadows and back into the warmth of the world. They walk out onto the streets with tentative, disbelieving steps, blinking against the beautiful, overwhelming brilliance of the daylight. The incredibly soothing, deeply emotional sound of quiet weeping fills the air, not out of sorrow, but out of pure, unadulterated relief. Families that had been torn apart by the unpredictable currents of the era are gently, tearfully reunited. Fathers embrace their children in the middle of the open squares, burying their faces in the soft fabric of their coats. Mothers hold their sons and daughters close, rocking them gently back and forth, entirely oblivious to the passing crowds. The scent of the city, which had felt so metallic and sharp with fear, begins to soften. The sweet, comforting aromas of baking pastries, blooming summer jasmine, and fresh rain on the cobblestones return to the forefront of the senses. Paris is finally, blessedly breathing again. As the weeks slowly pass, and the intense heat of the summer softens into the golden, comfortable warmth of the early autumn, a deep yearning for normality sweeps over the country. The people are exhausted by the grand, terrifying extremes of the revolution. They do not want more dramatic changes. They simply want the quiet, predictable comfort of a stable life. The cafes and salons, which had fallen incredibly silent during the dark months, begin to open their wooden shutters once more. The soft, musical sound of clinking glass, polite laughter, and gentle conversation drifts beautifully out into the evening air. The great pendulum of history, having swung to the very edges of human endurance, is now returning to its center. It slows its chaotic pace, finding a new, reliable equilibrium. The newly formed government restructures itself, aiming not for absolute ideological perfection, but for safety, balance, and the protection of the everyday citizen. The extreme burning heat of the political fever has finally broken, leaving behind a nation that is tired, incredibly weary, but ultimately healing and whole. Allow this profound historical release to mirror the feelings in your own body. Think about the muscles in your jaw, the tension in your neck, and the tightness in your own chest. You too may have been carrying a heavy, invisible weight throughout your day. But just like the citizens of France, stepping out of the shadows and into the warm sun, you can now give yourself complete permission to let it all go. Take a long, slow, deep breath in, filling your lungs entirely. And now, release it in one great, beautiful exhale. Feel the tension physically draining out of your body, melting away into the soft surface of your bed. The world outside your window can wait. The demands, the extremes, and the chaotic noises of the day have absolutely no power over you here in the dark. The storm has completely passed, leaving behind a perfectly clear, deeply starry night sky. You are safe in the calm center of the pendulum, resting in the quiet, stable space between the swings. Let the incredible, soothing comfort of this newfound peace wrap completely around you. Drift deeper and deeper into the quiet, knowing that the hardest parts are over and that a beautiful, stable horizon is waiting for you in the morning. As the deep, restorative peace of the great exhale settles permanently over the exhausted nation, a new and profoundly quiet era begins to emerge. The chaotic, unpredictable storms that had battered the French landscape for nearly a decade have finally broken, leaving behind a sky that is incredibly clear and beautifully vast. But a country that has been completely dismantled, piece by piece, cannot simply rest forever in the quiet aftermath. The heavy stones of the old world have been cleared away. The turbulent rivers of the revolution have found their gentle, steady banks. And now, the time has come to carefully, methodically rebuild. It is a time for a new kind of structure, a deeply comforting order that promises safety to a beautifully weary people. During this period of profound transition, the atmosphere in Paris shifts from a collective sigh of relief into a focused, rhythmic hum of restoration. The cobblestone streets, which had seen the marching feet of thousands and the heavy wooden wheels of the ancient carriages, are now being quietly and patiently repaired. Stonemasons work steadily in the warm afternoon sun, fitting new blocks of granite perfectly into place. Tap, slide, settle. Tap, slide, settle. It is the incredibly soothing sound of a broken world being carefully put back together. The citizens watch this progress with a deep, silent gratitude, finding immense comfort in the absolute predictability of a well-laid road. To guide this monumental task of rebuilding, the nation instinctively looks toward a new kind of horizon. They no longer seek the divine, untouchable magic of a king, nor do they want the intense, burning fervor of the revolutionaries. Instead, they yearn for logic, for clarity, and for an unbreakable foundation. Stepping quietly out of the lingering shadows of the era is a young general named Napoleon Bonaparte. We will not look at him today as a commander on a loud, distant battlefield, but rather as a deeply focused architect, stepping into a quiet, messy room, ready to organize the chaos into perfect, beautiful harmony. Imagine a mind that operates with the profound, calming precision of a mathematical equation. That is the energy this new leader brings to the weary heart of France. He does not rule through chaotic, unpredictable decrees, but through the establishment of clear, undeniable laws. Inside the grand, quiet halls of the newly repurposed palaces, teams of legal scholars sit at long, polished wooden tables. The comforting, hypnotic scratch of feather quills on parchment returns once more, but this time the ink is writing a universal code. The rules of daily life, of buying bread, of owning a small plot of land, are made perfectly clear and exactly equal for every single citizen. This new written order acts like a heavy, protective blanket wrapped securely around the shoulders of the nation. In the rolling, green countryside we know so well, the farmers can finally plant their wheat and tend to their vineyards without the constant, lingering fear that their hard work will be suddenly swept away. They look out over their land as the sun gently sets, watching the amber light cast long, peaceful shadows over the soil. They know exactly what tomorrow will bring. There is an incredible, unmatched relaxation that comes from absolute certainty, from knowing that the foundation beneath your feet is finally solid and entirely secure. Under this new horizon, the physical landscape of France begins to gently bloom once again. Tall, elegant trees are carefully planted in perfectly straight, orderly lines along the wide avenues of Paris. Beautiful, grand canals are dug to bring fresh, flowing water into the heart of the cities. The rhythmic, coordinated motion of thousands of people working together to build a more beautiful world creates a deeply mesmerizing, continuous pulse of positive energy. The heavy, dark architecture of the past is slowly replaced by wide, open spaces filled with light, logic, and a quiet, dignified grace. As evening approaches, the young leader works late into the deep, quiet hours of the night. He sits alone in a warm, comfortable study, bathed in the soft, steady glow of an oil lamp. Large, beautifully detailed maps of the country are spread out smoothly across his heavy oak desk. He traces the lines of new roads and quiet rivers with the precise, deliberate point of a silver compass. The incredibly soft rustle of the thick paper and the gentle metallic click of the compass are the only sounds in the silent room. It is a beautifully solitary, meditative process, the quiet laying of a foundation that will outlast the storms of history for centuries to come. Allow yourself to absorb the profound, grounding comfort of this newly built structure. Think of the tangled, chaotic thoughts in your own mind as an unorganized room. Now, picture a warm, soft light turning on, revealing that everything has suddenly been put into its proper place. The heavy books are neatly stacked, the scattered papers are gently filed away, and the floor is swept completely clean. There is absolutely nothing left for you to figure out, nothing left to organize, and nothing left to fear. The complex equations of your day have been beautifully and permanently solved. The pendulum has completely stopped moving, resting heavily and peacefully in the exact center of its arc. The world outside your window is governed by a quiet, reliable logic, protecting your right to rest. As the oil lamps in the quiet study finally burn down, completely surrendering to the enveloping dark, the entire nation of France falls into the deepest, most secure sleep it has known in over a decade. Let your own body match that incredible heavy release. Sink deeply into the center of your bed, perfectly supported by the structure beneath you, and let the soothing, orderly peace of a new horizon carry you beautifully away. As the new, orderly foundation of the nation settles firmly and deeply into the earth, the heavy, rapidly turning pages of our long history book slowly begin to ease their pace. The grand, turbulent era that first began with quiet, whispered ideas in warm, candlelit Parisian salons and erupted into the massive breaking of ancient stone walls is finally reaching its beautifully peaceful conclusion. Time, moving just like the gentle, ever-flowing waters of the River Seine, continues its endless, rhythmic journey toward the sea. It carries with it all the incredibly turbulent memories of the past, slowly smoothing out their sharp edges, turning them into polished, perfectly rounded stones of history. The loud, chaotic echoes of the revolution gradually and entirely fade away, replaced by the profound, comforting silence of a newly balanced world. Imagine standing once again on the quiet, darkened banks of that great river, the very same river we followed on our first night together. The dark water ripples softly and rhythmically in the pale, silver moonlight, making a deeply hypnotic, continuous rushing sound against the muddy banks. But the world surrounding this river is completely and permanently transformed. The heavy iron chains of the absolute monarchy have completely dissolved into the mist of the night air. The towering, terrifying shadows of the Bastille are entirely gone. Its heavy, impenetrable stones are now resting peacefully in the structure of a sturdy bridge, safely and reliably carrying ordinary citizens over the gentle, flowing water beneath them. The true, lasting legacy of this grand, sweeping journey is not found in the cold, unmoving marble statues, nor is it hidden within the incredibly complex laws written by the generals and the kings. It is found in the soft, invisible, but entirely unbreakable threads of human dignity. The beautiful, hopeful words of liberty and equality, which were first written down on crisp, textured parchment during the warm, golden days of the late summer, have deeply rooted themselves into the very soil of the nation. Like tiny, resilient seeds planted before a massive storm, they have weathered the freezing rain and the harsh winds, and have now grown into vast, protective canopies of ancient oak and elm. These deep roots shelter the common people, ensuring that the farmer, the baker, and the weaver can all sleep safely under the exact same, completely fair sky. Think of the incredibly quiet, enduring power of those simple ideas. They traveled through the bitterly freezing, hungry winters, and they survived the dark, frightening storms of the terror, protected solely by the resilient, steady, beating hearts of ordinary men and women. And because they survived that immense turbulence, those deeply comforting ideas of fairness and human rights did not simply stay trapped within the borders of France. They floated outward into the universe like tiny, glowing golden embers on a gentle evening breeze. They gracefully crossed massive, dark oceans and vast sleeping continents, slowly warming the entire world with their pure, undeniable truth. The great pendulum of history, which we have watched swing so wildly from the extreme, unbothered luxury of the gilded cage to the chaotic, heavy fear of the streets, has finally come to a complete and profound rest. It hangs perfectly still in the quiet, absolute center of its arc, completely motionless in the dark. The incredible, vibrating tension that once gripped the chest of the nation has entirely evaporated, carried away by the gentle turning of the seasons. France is no longer a country holding its breath, waiting anxiously for the dawn. It is a nation completely at peace, breathing deeply, slowly, and steadily in the cool, refreshing night air. The grand, silent palaces, the simple, quiet stone cottages scattered across the rolling fields, and the winding, narrow cobblestone streets of Paris all share in this beautiful, heavy slumber. The hearth fires have burned down to a soft, glowing orange ash. The incredibly comforting scent of wood smoke, damp earth, and dried lavender lingers gently in the cool breeze. Even the crickets in the tall summer grass seem to chirp in a perfectly steady, relaxing rhythm, a natural lullaby that perfectly matches the quiet, sleeping heartbeat of the country. As our grand historical journey draws to its gentle, final close, allow that same profound, centered stillness to completely enter your own mind and body. You have traveled beautifully through the historical turbulence. You have weathered the long, rhythmic march in the autumn rain, and you have safely reached this incredibly calm, deeply beautiful horizon. Let the incredibly soothing rhythm of the sleeping city wrap securely around you, like a heavy, warm, and entirely comforting woolen blanket. There are no more historic battles to fight, no more complex ideas to debate, and absolutely no more heavy, exhausting burdens to carry through the dark. Everything is exactly as it should be, perfectly balanced, perfectly safe, and perfectly calm. Picture the pale, silvery moon casting its soft, protective, and completely silent glow over the sprawling, sleeping countryside. Listen, one last time, to the incredibly gentle, hypnotic rustle of the ancient tree branches swaying softly in the midnight breeze. The long story is finally finished. The heavy, leather-bound book is softly and gently closed, and the world around you is completely, beautifully safe. Release your very last lingering thought into the cool night air. Let your breathing slow down to its deepest, most restful, and completely unconscious rhythm. Sink deeply into the center of your bed and completely surrender to the quiet, protective embrace of the dark. Thank you so much for sharing this peaceful, historic journey through time. Rest well, dear listener. Sleep deeply, and I wish you a very peaceful, highly restorative, and profoundly good night. As the great, heavy book of history finally closes its pages, we are left entirely in the quiet, comforting space of the present moment. We have traveled across centuries together, floating like a gentle breeze over the gilded cages of ancient kings, walking through the quiet, snow-covered fields of the countryside, and standing in the warm golden light of a new dawn. All the turbulent noise of the past has now faded into a deeply peaceful, distant echo. The grand storms have passed, the heavy stones have settled, and the great river of time continues its slow, completely unbothered journey toward the sea. There is a beautiful, profound lesson hidden within the long shadows of the past. Just as a great nation endures its long winters and its turbulent changes, you too move through the shifting seasons of your own life. Throughout your day, you may face your own unexpected storms, carry your own heavy burdens, and navigate the complex winding streets of a busy world. But history reminds us that no storm lasts forever. No winter is endless. Beneath the chaos of the surface, there is always a deep, unbreakable foundation of peace waiting patiently for you to return to it. Tonight, you do not need to build a new world, and you do not need to fight any battles. The heavy pendulum that swings through the active hours of your day has finally come to a complete, beautiful rest. It hangs perfectly still in the absolute center of your mind. Allow yourself to fully surrender to this profound stillness. Imagine the incredibly soothing dark night sky that once blanketed the sleeping gardens of France, now stretching endlessly over your own room. It is a vast, protective canopy, filled with the gentle, quiet light of a million ancient stars, watching over you with absolute, unchanging calm. Let us take a moment to gently release any remaining echoes of the day. Bring your quiet attention to the very top of your head. Imagine taking off a heavy, invisible crown of worries and responsibilities, slowly setting it down on a table beside you. Feel the skin of your forehead completely smooth out, just like a calm, glassy lake at midnight. Let this deep, melting relaxation flow down into your jaw, parting your lips slightly and releasing all the unspoken words of the day into the cool night air. Allow this warm, soothing comfort to drift down into your neck and your shoulders. Your shoulders have carried so much today, just like the weary travelers marching through the autumn rain. Now, simply let them drop. Feel them sinking heavily and completely into the soft support of your bed. There is no more marching to be done. There is absolutely nowhere else you need to be. You are perfectly safe, entirely secure, and completely held by the deep gravity of the earth beneath you. Now, focus on the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest. Think of the great collective exhale of a nation finally finding its peace. Take a long, slow, deeply filling breath in, drawing the quiet energy of the night all the way down into your lungs. And now, let it out. Exhale completely, feeling your chest fall softly, washing away any lingering tension, any lingering fear, and any lingering doubt. With every breath you take, you are pulling yourself deeper and deeper into a beautiful, untouched sanctuary of rest. Let this wave of deep relaxation glide smoothly down your arms, all the way into your hands and your fingers. These hands that have worked so hard, just like the quiet, capable hands of the farmers and the weavers, can finally stop moving. Let your fingers curl naturally, completely soft and entirely empty. Feel the relaxing wave continue down through your stomach, softening your center and moving down into your heavy, tired legs. Let it flow completely down into your feet, resting warmly at the tips of your toes. Your entire physical body is now perfectly still, perfectly calm, and completely relaxed. The world outside your window is incredibly quiet now. The great historical rivers have reached the sea, and the waters are deeply, profoundly calm. You are surrounded entirely by the comforting, protective embrace of the dark. Allow your mind to simply drift, floating effortlessly like a single, fallen autumn leaf on the surface of a slow-moving stream. There is nothing left to think about. There is nothing left to plan. There is only the beautiful, steady, and endless rhythm of your own peaceful breathing. As the last, quiet echoes of our story fade entirely into silence. Know that you are deeply protected, completely at peace, and ready to dream. Thank you for allowing me to guide you through the long shadows of history and into the brilliant, calming light of a new horizon. Close your eyes completely now. Surrender yourself to the beautifully heavy, healing power of sleep. Rest well, dear traveler. Sleep deeply, and I wish you a profoundly peaceful, incredibly restorative, and truly good night.